All right, you've tuned in to the next installment of Games Talk Live. We're here once again. We weren't here last week. I apologize for that. I had something going on. I couldn't be here, but none of us could really be here. We all had something going on. And you know what? I'm just so excited today because I get my co-host back. Hargeet is back. Hargeet, welcome back, brother. I know you've been going through a lot. We've all been freaking just hoping for the best, praying, doing our thing out here for you, brother, sending positive vibes your way. But it's good to have you back, bro. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for all the well wishes. It was a couple of deaths in the family, so we kind of had to take a little hiatus there. And still going through some of the logistics and all that stuff. That's gonna go on for a while. But
Yep.
the funerals are done. But yeah, so back. I've been kind of totally out of the loop on stuff. I've been listening in here and there, but mostly kind of ignored the gaming world. Unfortunately, just kind of wasn't really in the mood for that.
Of
so,
course, man.
um, but yeah, so we'll get back into it. Let's see what's going on in the world of gaming.
We sure will. We're going to bring you right back into it today and talk about all the fun stuff that's been going on. And of course, today we have our tech expert, the guy down below. I say expert because he's better than me when it comes to tech. Jake is back with us this week. Jake, welcome back, my friend.
Glad to be back, and I would say more fixation rather than expertise.
Yeah, you work in the field, so I mean, you know what you're talking about. You like Hargeet as well. Hargeet works in the tech field as well. He knows what he's talking about. That's why it's funny when people try to come up against, you or Hargeet or something with tech stuff, and I'm like, stop right there. Especially if you're like just a console guy and you have no idea about anything PC related. Slow your roll, okay? Watching one Linus Tech Tip video isn't going to help you. All right, so. Anyways, we're going to get on with the show today. We're going to talk about our first topic. I want to say what's up to the audience first, though, because I see some very cool people in the audience. We got Mark. Thank you, Mark, for being here. He says, what's up, Fonz? Almost finished with KCD2 yet. Oh, he's asking me? Oh, yeah. Done with that. Biff Rinaldi says, what's up? We've got freaking Graybeard Gaming. We've got Colt Eastwood in the chat. Infinity DOK. I appreciate all of you, Rachie. Appreciate everybody here today. But let's get into our first topic. Did you hear, guys, that The Last of Us 3 may not be a thing? Now, if we go back to April of 2021, Neil Druckmann put out a tweet saying that he finished the story outline of The Last of Us 3. So he got a lot of people excited that were, happy with The Last of Us 2. I personally was not happy with that story at all. Gameplay was phenomenal. Story, shit. Complete shit. Anyway, so I was not excited for the next game. I wasn't going to buy it anyway. But apparently, for those of you waiting for The Last of Us 3, it doesn't look like it's happening. Because if you fast forward till just the other day, Neil had this to say on it. And this is a quote. He says, I guess the only thing I would say is, don't bet on there being more Last of Us. This could be it. Now, with the success of the HBO show and stuff, and I'm hearing they want to do like multiple seasons of that. They're not just doing a part 1, part 2, not a season 1, season 2. They're doing multiple seasons. So they're going to prolong this. And I even hear that they're going to change some stuff up from part 2. So this may not go exactly how a lot of people think. And I think Neil's just wrapped up into that world of producing this show. Where he just doesn't want to go back to do this game. I don't think he will. I think this is it for The Last of Us. And I say, fine, because I don't even, like when I talk about The Last of Us, I'm talking about the first game. I loved that game. I did not love 2. But what do you guys say on this? Hargeet, what do you have to say on this matter? Do you think this is something he's not going to do?
He may not, and just like another HBO series that had to finish without the actual source material, Game of Thrones, where those last 2 books haven't been written yet, right? They haven't been completed yet, but they kind of continued and finished up, and you could definitely tell a quality difference. Maybe that won't
ruined
happen
it.
Here.
Ruined it. I don't want it to end like that in the books because I love the books.
Yeah, and again, like you could just tell there was a drop off in the detail, right?
Yeah.
Because he was very detailed in the books, right? So they had a lot of source material. But put that aside, he's also come out and said, Neil, that he kind of wants to take a hiatus and go go back to his family and watch his kids grow up. And fair enough, that could be part of it. That could be a cover for other things that are happening. I mean, consider it this way: this is the premier studio at Sony, that at least from a critical reception perspective, has the Uncharted series and the Last of Us series, and they're working on factions, and in comes the 3.6 billion Bungie acquisition that says your game is shit, and they cancel it, and that's got to feel a certain way, right? I mean, he's the kind of the lead of that. That's got to feel a certain way. And maybe he agrees with it. Fine. That's fine. But it's in the back of your head, you got to say, did they just come and tell me to fuck off? And if they really did, like, well, who the hell are they? And look, and egos are egos. It is what it is, right? And maybe he's like a good corporate employee and he's like, fine. I'm sorry if at some point you gotta say, look, I did that, and like you guys are telling me that I can't do what I want to do. Yeah, go fuck yourself. And so some of that's got to be part of it. The other part of it is, look, the TV series is doing well, right? It's got very good critical reception, and he's like, I've always wanted to branch off into the Hollywood world, right? And hell, this is his way to get in, and maybe he says, I'm gonna focus there, right? And there's plenty of toxicity across the board, but in gaming nowadays, God, like he's getting it, right? There was so much negativity thrown his way. And then you look at the Intergalactic trailer and it's got a more than 2-to-1 dislike to like ratio. And so that game's gonna bring a lot of heat, right? So at some point you just say, well, why the hell am I here? What am I like? If I want to tell stories, I've already got an in the Hollywood side. Why don't I just go there? That's one avenue. The other one could be that the relationship at Naughty Dog and him and Sony may just not be in a good place, right? So I'm just looking at it externally, trying to think of all the different parameters. There's also just that, like, as a human being, you're like, hey, my family's growing up. I kind of want to be there. I'm already rich. I don't care. Like, I don't need to do this. I've got enough money, right? So I could go and not get pummeled by all these fans and go just go to my kids' practice, my kids' recitals, and enjoy their their teenage years while they grow up. That's fair too. What the hell, right? Why not? So there's all sorts of potentials here, but I think he's got Intergalactic. Maybe he's got the story, from my perspective, probably for the next Uncharted. Before he just sunsets, right, and says, I'm out.
Yeah.
You guys continue on.
Be it.
Does that mean Last of Us is done? I don't think it is, because I think somebody else will pick up the mantle. But here's the problem I have with Sony. Sony sits on a ton of IP and does jack shit with it. So if somebody like Neil doesn't push to say, no, I want to make the next one, will there be another person that will pick up the mantle and say, we should go do that? I don't know that the answer is yes, right? Because look, if it was a different Sony in a different world where they do all sorts of IP all the time, fine. They're cutting down on what they put out, and they're focusing on things that will absolutely generate revenue. And what they don't want is anything controversial, right? They want to do something that's going to be, this is going to sell 15, 20 million copies. That's what they want, right? So it's tough for me to say this, but I think he might be right. He might be that, like, they're like, yo, this as a game causes us too much controversy and we don't want that. And we're not going to go figure out the next person that might write the story, that might do the right things. And like, we'll just move on, right? That might be the answer. I don't know, right? So he's probably obviously he's talking to upper management and they're figuring things out. And he's like, yeah, I don't think it's happening, folks. Right. So you got to read that and say there's probably truth to that. And the current Sony, I don't know that they go back. Right. If this is a new incarnation of PlayStation at some point, maybe that happens. But right now, they sit on IP, which is just crazy to me. They have so much stuff. They do nothing with it. Like, okay, fair enough. So
that sounds plausible. Jake, you got any ideas on, will there be a Last of Us 3 or not?
I think you make a bunch of great points, Hargy, and I am it's hard for me to disagree with literally anything you said. But even with all that and all those logical points you've made, I am still skeptical that some sort of Last of Us game is not eventually going to be made. It doesn't have to be a 3. I mean, they kind of ended 2 on a like an open ending. It could, you know, maybe it could go somewhere. But what about like a prequel? What about something set like in the time period before, like
Yeah.
between the virus,
I,
the not the virus, the fungus breaking out and the events of the first game? Like that's like what,
I
10,
would
20
prefer
years?
that. Yeah, I would prefer
So
that.
so I think we could see something like that. And honestly, like
But
it's not like it's
maybe not by Neil Druckmann. Maybe by the rest of the studio or by
Yeah,
some
and
other studio they may have at some point. But I think
they
Neil's
have
pretty much like probably done with this
it's not
story.
like it's
they have
uncommon
between 1 and
for
2 as well, right?
situations.
There's a long period there too, 1 and 2, right? So
At
there's a
least a
lot
few
of
years, yeah.
potential ground.
But it's not uncommon for people in those higher up positions like Neil. Like Neil's a writer and somewhat of a game designer, but he's mostly the executive at
Yeah.
and like main producer at Naughty Dog. And honestly, like some people are just more prefer to more be on the creative side, and he might be sick of the like he might be getting sick and tired of the like directing and executive role. I mean, it's not like it's uncommon. You guys know who Naoki Yoshida is, right? Yoshi P. He's
Yes.
the lead producer at Square Enix and
Yeah.
former executive, led Final Fantasy 14 and 16. He just stepped down. He's not an executive anymore. He's not a producer. He's purely the lead game designer. Because he was only in that executive position because he didn't want Square Enix screwing with his beloved MMO and doing stuff that he didn't want them doing. But now Final Fantasy 14 makes Square the vast majority of their money, so he probably felt the game was in a safe space and he wanted to focus on just designing. So
Yeah.
like it really could just be something as simple as that.
Yeah.
Like he probably just wants to write and yeah, wants to focus on stuff that maybe he feels
Yeah.
wouldn't be as divisive.
Yeah.
But I
That's
still feel like there's going to be future Last of Us stuff.
that is a good point. You just said that. Maybe he doesn't want to, be as divisive because Last of Us 2 is very divisive. And when you look at the fact that the timeline, when he said back in, this was April of 2021, stating that he had finished the outline of the story of part 3, maybe all the hate and divisiveness got to him and he just looked at it, or maybe Sony looked at the story he outlined and said, nope, that's not going to work. That's not going to
I
sell.
mean, Sony and Naughty Dog and Neil can pretend like the hater backlash didn't get to them, but it did. Like he's only human. The people working at that studio are only humans. If they see a huge chunk of the internet and the fan base like shit talking the game,
Yeah.
that's gonna get to them. They worked really hard and like I don't like the game that much, but it's clear from within like an hour of playing just the tremendous amount of work and effort that was put into it. So imagine
Yeah,
you put
for
that
sure.
much effort for that many years into that game, and then you see like 60% of the internet shitting on it.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
there
it
were
could
so
just be
many
that thing.
people who put down the controller as soon as they had to play as that one chick. What was her?
Abby, they
Abby.
should have. What they should have done is they should have had like we should have been playing as her first, and
See,
then got up to the point where she golf clubbed Joel, and then suddenly it was
it,
revealed like, hey, we were just playing as the person that did that, and then it moved to Ellie and
well,
what
if
Ellie
you
did
just
after that. I
look,
think what people hated was that like we watched Abby and her buddies kill Joel, and then suddenly we're playing as her.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's what made
yeah.
people mad.
And so if you look at The Last of Us, just look at the sales there, and then you look at the sales of The Last of Us 2, it didn't get near the sales of The Last of Us, the first one, okay? It didn't sell as well. So a lot of that, you might assume, is because of the story, because of maybe playing as Abby. And just imagine if his story, his outline anyway, was about Abby, and you continued on as Abby, and you got
It would have
more
been
of Abby. It wouldn't have sold well. And that's just what I'm trying to, say. I think if it's
100%.
that sort
If
of
Abby was
scenario,
on the cover art of part
yeah.
3, yeah, I don't think, yeah, I think it wouldn't.
And because
It'd be the
Joel's
worst thing
already
in the story.
gone, and then you just have Ellie without the finger, she's missing.
I still
it's
think
bad.
like I still think killing Joel was a mistake,
Of
and
course,
I
of
get that
course.
like I mean, if you want an example of a revenge bad storyline that's done well in a Sony game, go play Ghost of Tsushima and go do the side quests.
Yes.
Lady Masako, like her
Yep.
whole storyline is basically that whole revenge bad thing, but done way
Yeah.
better.
Graybeard Gaming, thank you for the 3. He says Bungie didn't want competition for Marathon in talking about the factions. And that could be. That could very well be.
It is hard. I mean, when you're trying to release 12 live service games, it's kind of hard to, have all those games competing for people's times. There's only so many people with PlayStations and PCs.
But I don't think that if it was really good, they would have chucked it. I think they would have put it on the back burner, release it later, or release it. I mean, they could have released it last year if it was any good, before Marathon, because we still haven't even gotten Marathon. We haven't really seen much of what we're going to get out of Marathon. We've heard some things. That's about it. Face 23 BKNY with $1.99. Thank you very much. Says, at Chani, I bet you a 5090. The next Xbox is not 2026. We'll get into that, Face.
You
We'll
might
get
be
into
right.
all that.
You might be right.
Yeah,
Who
we'll get
knows,
into all
right?
that. Yeah.
We got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about with the tech coming up and stuff, because I find it all interesting what we're getting out of the tech and what you, my friend, may be getting out of the PS6 and may not be getting out of the PS6. We'll talk about that later. That's going to be a fun one. But yeah, just to wrap this up, it could be any number of things with Neil, but everything that we're saying here could all be plausible. At the end of the day, Neil does want to get into the industry, into, making movies and stuff like
film,
that.
Right? Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. On the other hand, I understand too, as a family man, you want to be with your kids and your wife and stuff like that. I get that too. And also, I get Sony's point of view if they just didn't like the story for The Last of Us 3 or what it outlined there. And, maybe it was about Abby and they were like, no, thank you. Could be. I'm just saying it could be that. By the way, Hargeet, while you were away and while I was away, we got a delay from Fable into 2026. And I was just wondering, my friend, how do you take this news? How far along do you think Fable is? Did it really need all this time, or is it just being pushed back, in your opinion?
Let's see if your guess is the same as mine.
I think it's being pushed back. There's several reasons it could be pushed back, but one of the obvious ones is they already have too much stuff already lined up themselves, and it's possible GTA 6 is going to make it this fall. And if it does, good God, get out of the way. There's just no reason. Why do that? They already have Outer Worlds 2 lined up, Ninja Gaiden lined up, Call of Duty lined up, right? Why? And they supposedly have stuff they yet to announce that's coming out this year. And okay, enough. There's too much. You don't need to go crazy. Fable's a headliner type game. Give it room. And if GTA 6 is coming out, literally just get out of the way. What's the point? Get out of the way.
So is it going back to is it giving you flashbacks of June when I yelled, too many games?
Yes, literally. Too many games. This year is crazy. There's too many. Well, there's too many games on this side, right? We yet to see Nintendo. Nintendo has a Switch 2 announcement to come.
They are going to have a deluge of games.
Right? And so now you got those two coming. Right? And it's like, yo, you need to give room. My backlog is crazy. I still haven't finished games from last year. I can't. It's just too much. There's too many games.
I'm in the middle of
so
6 games right now.
Yeah, right? It just keeps going. And so I don't know how to keep up. And they keep giving us more. Yes, please put Fable and push it out. They have next year's going to be the same problem. They have so much to release next year. And if they really do come up with hardware next year, good God, they're going to have so much stuff for that at the launch. Anyway, so moving it up. Now, the other thing is the potential to say, can we get a port ready for PlayStation? That is a potential as well. And Switch. Let's keep it straight. They're going to put it on a Switch as well, right? If that happens, fine. I don't care. Fine. But what would be nice is if they say, you know what, it'll happen, but it'll be a year later. You can have it on the other platforms a year later. But I think it's really just get out of the way of GTA, because Take-Two and them, I'm sure, are talking. They're obviously talking, right? And if they're saying we're ready this fall, we just don't have the exact date locked down.
If we don't see a second trailer by April, the end of April, I don't think we're getting GTA 6 this year. Just if you follow the timeline of the previous games and how they release trailers, if you line it up, it should be end of March or beginning of April. But I'm going to give them to the end of April. If it doesn't come out by the end of April, then I don't think GTA is this year.
Yeah, and if that's not the case, then fine. Then it doesn't really you could bring it in, right? But I think that's the problem is they have so much already lined up for the fall themselves. They have to get out of their way, and they had this problem last fall where they had too many things lined up at the same exact like, dude, spread it out. It's okay, right? Now they're in the position where they can put stuff in their back pocket and say, "Well, we'll put this out when we're ready to put it out." It doesn't matter, right? Because they have so
Yeah.
much other stuff. So it's fine. They can space it out. I'm okay with that. If the game needed time, that's great. I think they're ready. I just think they just need a slot to put it in where it's not going to conflict. And they don't want to conflict with themselves, but sure as hell not. And understand, there's other games coming this fall, right? We still haven't heard about when Mafia is coming out, when Bioshock's
that's
coming
true.
out, when Borderlands is coming out, when blah blah blah, and it just keeps going. That's just Take-Two.
Do
You have
you know-
everybody else out there?
I believe all these games that we heard that are coming this year that haven't announced dates yet are waiting for that GTA 6 date.
GTA. Absolutely.
That's all they're waiting
They're
on.
waiting for that
Yeah.
window. Like, where's that
Yeah.
window? And then we're going to be way the hell out of that window.
Jake, I sort of have a different question for you about this, though. I'm going to present it to you this way. What if they pushed it to 2026 so they can finish up both versions of the game? And by both, I mean PlayStation and Xbox to release day and date on both.
It's possible. I think that Microsoft is going to take the same approach to PlayStation ports that Sony is taking to PC ports, just staggered, like we're obviously a few years behind. And what I mean is, I think that right now what we're seeing games that are like 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, even older in Sea of Thieves' case, getting ported to PlayStation because they got their money on PC and Xbox, and now they want to breathe a second life into those games, get some extra profit. And I don't actually think that that's going to change with Fable. I think that one's still going to be staggered by 6 months to a year. I think this delay is GTA 6 and too many games. I think that different time of the year, obviously, but I think that's why Assassin's Creed Shadows kept getting push up. Like they were trying to polish it, obviously, but I think that they were just trying to get out of the way of other things. Even though Assassin's Creed's a juggernaut series, Ubisoft is having problems right now, so they don't want to take any chances. So I'm gonna guess right now that that's probably not what it is. I don't think the day and date Microsoft game on PlayStation title is gonna be Fable, not counting Call of Duty or Doom or any of those other games that were, originally multi-plat anyways. If we're talking the like first party big tentpole IPs, I think it's going to be something else, something smaller to test the waters, like Sony's been doing for PC. Like right now, Sony isn't like releasing their big tentpole titles day and date on PC, but live service multiplayer games and remakes are coming onto PC day one. So they're testing the waters too, and they're reining in those times. Like Spider-Man 2 was just a little over a year. I wasn't ready to buy it on PC yet. And I was ready to wait another year for that. So I think like just watch what Sony's doing on PC, and Microsoft is gonna, at least for the foreseeable future, probably just do the same thing for PlayStation.
Yeah, I think so. Or whether or not they move, it doesn't really matter why they moved it.
They will eventually do it. By the way.
We've got a ton of games. Now, I'm not just talking about Xbox. I'm talking about multi-plats and everything. This year, 2025, it's finally like rolling where we're getting a steady stream of good games. I mean, we've already got a lot of games now that are over 80 Metacritics, in this year alone. It's already started off well. You've had Avowed, Split Fiction, Monster Hunter Wilds that's just taking over the world, it seems. Monster Hunter is just doing freaking crazy numbers. You had Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. That game just freaking blew me away. Like, I just finished that game. And
I was going to ask, actually. I know they're different games. Baldur's Gate 3 or Kingdom Come Deliverance 2? If you had to pick one of the two to play for the rest of the year.
If I had to choose, I would pick. Honestly, I played Baldur's Gate 3 multiple times already, so I'd have to pick that one because there's so much going on in that game where you can switch things up and change things up, get a different outcome. Whereas Kingdom Come, even though you can get some different choices and different consequences, it's still got a pretty, I don't want to say linear story, but it's you're going to get what you get, like, in the end. You know, a few things might change, but it doesn't really drastically change. So I think that I would pick Baldur's Gate, but Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a freaking masterpiece on its own. Honestly, I think it's one of the top 5 best sandbox games I've ever played. I think that the choice you get, the interactivity with NPCs and the world is just, it's so good. It's so good in that game. And the voice acting, the story, I'm really a stickler when it comes to an RPG. If you're going to give me a narrative, heavy narrative RPG, it better be good on that narrative. And I'm telling you, the writing in Kingdom Come is some of the best writing, hands down. I would even say better than Baldur's Gate. Better writing.
And then on top of that, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is the second game in recent memory that's making us all wonder. We know the reason why, but the reason why people are using Unreal Engine 5. We got a Crytek game here.
Yep.
And then the previous one is Indiana Jones using id Tech. And it's like, hey, we're getting some pretty fantastic, phenomenal visuals with buttery smooth performance on all platforms.
Right?
Like everyone uses Unreal Engine because of staffing. Like everyone's trained and knows how to use it, so it's easier to staff studios. That's why they're using it. But like Epic Games, I think Epic Games half-asses everything they do. And like they're the dominant player in the engine space, so they don't care too much about poor performance and stuttering because it's not affecting their game sales yet.
Yeah, but that's the thing, you know.
That's not just PC, by the way.
That's what worries me about games that are switching to Unreal Engine 5. You know, games that we've loved like Halo and stuff. I'm just worried about traversal stutter and things like that we've come to know in every Unreal Engine game. Like I'm hoping that for the best. I'm hoping for updates and changes and stuff, but you know, I don't understand. They're holding on to id Tech there. They know id Tech would be a great engine for the game, especially for a shooter. Come on, it's a no-brainer.
Dude, an id Tech Halo game, like, oh my god, that just seems like such a missed opportunity.
Amazing. But yeah, a lot of games are turning to Unreal Engine, and we all know it's for the high.
They do have the Coalition there, so I mean, if the Coalition can help them make sure it turns out good, I mean, I think Coalition knows Unreal Engine even better than Epic does. But then, I mean, Avowed just came out, and that's got traversal stutter on all platforms. So,
well, but that's not that's Obsidian. I think the Coalition, if anybody can do it, it's probably the Coalition. That's why I say wait till Gears E-Day. Matter of fact, that's one of the things I was going to bring up is that we do have the Gears collection, the rumors that it is coming this year. And this rumor, of course, comes from Mag, middle-aged game guy on the XNC podcast. He says that it will be revealed at this June's showcase. We will have all 3 games being shown, the first 3 Gears games. And they will be released later on this year in anticipation for Gears E-Day. Gears E-Day is also supposed to release at the end of the year. That's another game that Xbox has at the end of the year. So you have Gears E-Day, and that's the one everybody's waiting for. But
too much.
Just imagine, though, Hargeet, they bring out these first 3 games, the remakes, mind you.
I don't mind that. I think that can come out this year.
No. But in anticipation for E-Day, like, you're going to get gears on gears on gears, near the fall. And one thing that really struck me as odd, though, he says, I don't know if this is true, take it with a grain of salt. He says this is what he heard. But although they will have the co-op campaign, they won't have PvP. Is that a bad thing, Jake?
Yes. It's the same way when Last of Us Part 1 came out, the remade version, and didn't have factions built in. Yeah, it's a bummer. I know, like, Gears multiplayer is never at least the PvP multiplayer is never the big thing. It's the co-op and the campaign, but like, it's a bummer not to have it. I do think, by the way, this Gears remaster or remake collection would be an example of a game that they would try day and date on PlayStation.
Yes, it's supposed to come out day and date on PlayStation as well. By the way, that's another.
I think that's plausible.
Yeah, PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. I kind of scratch my head
And
there and I
keep
go,
forgetting Switch,
well,
but
what about the
I think
Switch?
Switch 2 will get it too.
It
I
might
think
get it.
Switch 2
Which
will get it as
one?
well.
If it's a
Switch
remaster
2.
Switch
collection,
2.
like
Switch 2.
Yeah,
I was
Switch
gonna
2.
say if it's a remaster collection and they're just like remastering, then Switch 1 could run that because the Xbox 360 like ran those
It's
games.
true.
But if
It's
it's a
fair.
remake, if it's like a remake Unreal Engine 5 or whatever, then yeah, Switch 2. But I do think Microsoft has a soft, like Phil Spencer especially has a soft spot for Nintendo, so I think Switch 2 will see a lot more Microsoft games. Like think about if they want to make this, I don't know if this will ever happen, but think about if they want to make another Banjo-Kazooie. You really think that they would make a Banjo-Kazooie and not put that on Switch 2 day one? Like that would literally just be killing the game's chance at success if they didn't do that.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons why maybe they just decided not to implement the PvP is because they want people playing E-Day. Maybe the PvP is there, in E-Day, just, a month
Oh,
or
it
two
will be
later.
for sure.
So that's probably what they want people to be playing. They don't want them to like cannibalize those sales that they could potentially have for the PvP market, And I get that. That makes total sense if that's the way it's going. I think a lot of people are just excited to play remakes of the first 3 games because those were all phenomenal. Like just fantastic games, man. I remember playing those back in the day and just freaking, oh man, Gears was like, to me, Gears and Halo were so big back in the 360 days. I freaking loved them. So can't wait for it. So we'll see. I'm excited for E-Day though, mostly just because I want to see them do this prequel thing and see how it all pans out. I think it's a clever way of doing, going back and showing what happened and everything. I think that's really good that they're doing that before they finish 6, because they did say they're going to go back to 6. That's still going to be something they're going to do. But I think, taking a break from that story and then jumping back, it gets people all excited again. And what better way
And
to
you
get
get to play as
PlayStation?
the people,
Yeah,
back to Marcus and
yeah.
Don, right? Like the
And it gets, honestly, I mean, I'm just going to say it gets people on the PlayStation side who's never played it excited for the games.
Yeah, and
So,
keep in mind, by the way, we assume that it's just for like new players on PlayStation and Switch, but there's PC, but also even on Xbox, there are new
yeah,
generation of players who've never touched Gears,
facts.
and this is a good chance for them to go into it. And just think about even Mass Effect trilogy, bringing that up to Legendary Edition gives a whole new generation a chance to play that massively awesome series, because that is now like what 20-ish years old, right? That game came out
Almost
2007,
18 years.
right? 2000, yeah, right. So
18 years. Yeah.
yeah, so and, like you have a generation of people who've never played. It's like, yes, this is a good idea. Just like those kind of old games, right? That's cool. It gives people like a modern control scheme for or modern conveniences for games that are older, and I think that's a cool thing to do. But yeah, I think that there's always that, right? It's not just that it'll be new players on different
Yeah,
platforms.
for sure.
Even on Xbox, there are players who've never played it. Like, yeah, now you get to experience it new, right? Because it's too old. I don't want to play. Now you get it brand new. Try it. Give it a chance. And it's a fantastic series.
Yeah, and you know what? And before the show, we were talking about old commercials, old gaming commercials. And you always have to bring up the Gears commercial. That first Mad World commercial was just, it set the bar for gaming commercials. Like, I remember seeing that commercial and just wanting that game so bad because of that commercial. Like, it just sucked me in. I was like, this is so cool. I even loved the song that was playing throughout, and I knew it was an old Tears for Fears song, but it was slowed down. I went out and bought the CD, the tape single of that freaking song and everything in anticipation for the Gears game. And dude, Gears, I can't wait. It's awesome to see this. And you're right, Hargy. It's cool to see this new generation of gamer that's never played these Gears games to actually play these remakes, to experience what we did. It's gonna be awesome. I like that. I like that a lot. But yeah, some of those old commercials we were talking about though, like the Sega with the baby spitting out and freaking flying across the world, and the Game Boy commercial with the guy that hits himself on the head with a freaking dead squirrel or something and sees colors on his Game Boy. for the game. It was for the Game Gear, Sega Game Gear. They were pushing colorful graphics and everything. Because remember, the Game Gear used cartridges. They used the Genesis cartridges right on the back of
That
it.
was the Nomad. That was the Nomad. The Game
Was
Gear
it?
had separate
Oh, it
cartridges.
had its
Yeah.
own cartridges. You're right. You're right.
They both had color backlit screens though,
They
which I
both
mean they
had
were
color.
shitty
Yes,
screens,
yes.
but that's
And I remember they
pretty,
took
pretty
regular
advanced.
batteries, like AA batteries, and they lasted literally like an hour. They died so quick. It was so bad. My friend had one of those, and yeah, did not last. Oh man. But anyways, you know what else we got going on? I guess Game Pass is getting more games because Tony Hawk. We've got the remakes of 3 and 4 going into Game Pass day one. Of course, it's going everywhere, but it'll be in Game Pass for you guys that have Game Pass. And apparently this is rebuilt from the ground up. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 will include parks from the original games as well as new locations. And there's going to be a career mode. There's going to be original tours from both games. There's going to be you're going to be cross-platform. You're going to be able to play other people cross-platform. So that's going to be a thing now. Up to 8 skaters at one time, meaning you'll have plenty of competition, it says. So what do you guys think about Tony Hawk remake here, 3 and 4? I know everybody's waiting for Underground. That's what like most people want. Like if you think Tony Hawk, it was all about Underground.
So there was some interview about like after 1 and 2 came out that they kind of canceled 3 and 4. This was before the acquisition. So I think maybe like when Phil saw that, he said, "No, let's greenlight it and bring it back." And maybe that's kind of what's happening here, and that's kind of cool. That's cool that they decided to do that. I don't know that it like 1 and 2 didn't sell that well, I guess, because it wasn't good enough for Bobby K, of course, but maybe for what they do with Xbox, they're like, look, this is going to go into Game Pass. We've got that covered, and then whatever we get is gravy from Switch, from PlayStation, from PC players that want to buy it. Absolutely, right? We'll just greenlight it, and we just want the variety, right? And I think that's a cool thing about Game Pass is we get variety, and you can greenlight games like this. That's cool, and this is a classic, right? So why not? Right? Let's bring the whole thing. So you have the 1 and 2 remake, and now we'll have a 3 or 4 remake. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys play those back in the day? Tony Hawk?
I did not.
Yeah, I did.
I didn't own it as a kid. Like I was a kid in that time frame. Like I was born 1995, so I was like,
Oh, okay. So
I was in elementary and middle school, like when those games were at their biggest. I never owned them, but I had all my friends that had PS2s, played those original games.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really interested in this, but I recognize the fact that a lot of people are, so that's cool at least.
Well, for me, it was at the time, I was a young adult. It was about the music. It was about the freaking just skating and stuff like that. Because I did some skating and biking and stuff back in the day, growing up. So it's like it was fun in video game form. Even for me, going all the way back to there was an NES game way back in the day, TNC Surf. It had surf and skate, just all that stuff. It's just. I don't know. It was like
it's kind of
nostalgic in a
kind
way.
of weird to me that I'm like not hugely. You'd think I would be hugely into those because I absolutely love Jet Set Radio and like Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. Like I absolutely love those games. So you would think I'd be super into these. I mean, maybe I should like actually get back into them.
Yeah. No, a lot of people are waiting for Underground, man. Icy Rhythms was asking about, do you really think people prefer Underground? A lot of people do. A lot of people are begging for that title to be remade. Skate or Die was another one, Biff. Yep. I remember that one too. Played all those games back in the day. Guys, there's rumors swirling, okay? Lots of articles being written that Xbox may be starting the new generation. And I've heard this before from some other people. And this rumbling comes from people that, I've even heard come from people at Microsoft say that 2026 was possible for a new generation start. But now those rumors are starting to get more and more heated, and I'm seeing more articles written about this. And if all of this is true, this would mean that Xbox would be starting a new generation of console, the 10th generation in 2026, 2 years before PlayStation would be ready. Hargeet, do you believe these rumors? And if so, how would you feel about a staggered start to a new generation?
I mean, it's possible, right? I wouldn't like say it's guaranteed. Anything can happen. We don't know. Yeah, these kind of things happen to get delays. It happens. If they're pushing for it, they can get it done. Great. Like dev kits, I think are kind of getting out there. That's kind of the rumor, right? So if that's the case, then it's got the right cadence. This is about the right time. And then 2026 is reasonable. It's reasonable that they would be able to release a new piece of hardware. I still wouldn't be surprised if it's 2027. And then I also don't know that PlayStation wouldn't be ready in 2027. We will see. It is possible the push for the 2026. We also don't know what format we're looking at, right? There's very strong inclinations that there will be some sort of portable at some point, right? Whether that has anything to do with next gen or not, we don't know. It could be a Windows device. We don't even know, right? It could be entirely different, but rumors suggest it will be an Xbox type device as far as the portable. And then some sort of actual under the TV device, right? We don't know what this is going to look like. So there's all sorts of potentials. But it is possible. 2026 is possible. I just wouldn't bet on it. It's not like, and no, pun intended for what Face was talking about, but it's always possible these things get delayed. You don't know. There's so many weird things that can happen between now and then. But
It's true.
if they're looking for a 2026, it is possible. I'd say it's about a 60% chance it could happen. And if it does, fantastic. So 2025, we get a new Switch. 2026, we get a new Xbox. 2027, potentially, we get a new PlayStation, right? It's just good times, right? It's good times for hardware. Maybe it is 2028 for PlayStation, but we're hearing rumors that they're ramping up, and they might be ready in 2027. So it's possible that they're ready to go. We just don't know. We'll find out. But 2026 would be fantastic. It's exciting when there's new stuff happening, right?
For sure.
We get to see new things. So if they they have stuff ready, maybe we get to see it as showcase. Maybe it's a little later. But they need to start showing it then, right? If it's going to be ready next year. So looking forward to that reveal whenever we get to see it.
Maybe at the Keeleys at the end of the year. Who knows?
It could be. It could very well be like a headliner at the Keeleys. Yeah.
I've got to point out something. Icy Rhythm says, I actually don't understand the purpose of the new Xbox at this point, given their current software strategy. But I'm sure they'll give it one more go. One of those main reasons that they would give it one more go, Icy, is I think Game Pass. Game Pass is very much, I think, more on the console side right now. And I think to abandon that would be foolish at this point. So they're going to add more consoles out there to the world because there's Game Pass right there. And I know Game Pass is on PC too, but again, I think more people are on Game Pass on the console side than PC as of now. Yeah. And until
there's
that
a reason
switches,
Game Pass for PC didn't get a price hike while every other version did. Like PC Game Pass is still $10.
Yeah, it's still
there's
$10.
A reason.
I think it's 11, right? But yeah, it as far as like the console, the assumption is that if you don't beat somebody else, that you're not a viable market, participant. That's not true, right? If they sell a certain amount and it makes sense for them, they will continue to keep selling. So it does not matter. I don't know what their numbers are.
We talked about this before. There's got to be a certain point where it doesn't make sense for them. We just don't know what that point is, and I don't think they've hit that yet. So.
Yeah, so as long as they can sell n number of consoles and it makes sense for them to be a part of the market, they will continue to be a part of the market. So I don't see that being an issue, right?
Yeah.
It's always the assumption that, hey, my cola, Zevia, has to beat Coca-Cola. It's not going to. Yeah. It's not going to. I don't care. As long as I can buy it, I'm good. I don't need it to beat somebody else, right? I just need to be a participant in the market that I can participate in. And there's enough console buyers out there that want an Xbox. That's it. As long as there's people wanting an Xbox, they'll make it.
Yeah, for sure. Jake, if it does launch in 2026, this new console, we've heard a lot of things. It might be a PC hybrid / console thing. I don't know. But what would you expect from a new console, or what would you like to see in a new console?
So Can you guys let me go on a spiel for like
Oh, go
5
ahead.
minutes?
Go ahead.
Maybe
Go
not
ahead.
5
Go
minutes,
for it.
because
Yeah.
I want to explain exactly that and what I think is going to happen. But I need to go into some technical jargon for a second. Nothing too crazy.
Okay.
So, so we know for a fact that Microsoft and Sony are going to be using AMD again. Like Intel does not have a mature enough graphics architecture, even though they can make chips that have both on the same. And Nvidia can't make x86 CPUs yet, and they want an x86 console because they want backwards compatibility. So they're both using AMD. There's no other option. Right now, AMD is in the PC graphics space. We got some to talk about that later. And their current strategy is that they have two separate architectures for their GPU dies. And there's RDNA, which is, you guys have probably heard that 1,000 times in Fanboy Wars. That's their gaming side. And then there's CDNA, which is their, server and market and AI side. And those are two separate things. NVIDIA, for their graphics architecture, they sell the same exact dies, not counting like the big giant Hopper, like H100s or whatever, but they sell the same exact dies to professionals that they do to gamers. So NVIDIA can, like, for example, if they're not making as much money in the PC space, they can pivot and just sell those same exact dies to like server and professional and AI and stuff. AMD right now does not have that option. Like, if they are not selling well in the PC space, they can't just reroute those same dies they've already built to server. So what I'm getting at here is AMD wants to pivot on that, and they are actually merging CDNA and RDNA within the next generation or two of their graphics, and it's going to be called UDNA, Unified like DNA. And I don't think that we're going to see the main under the TV box from Microsoft and Sony until UDNA is ready. It would not make sense for them to be building, tens of millions to 100 plus million consoles on an old RDNA strategy when they've moved on to UDNA, like within a year or two after that. So I think as far as the biggest technical leap box, which I think that whole AI generated game on the fly thing they just showed off recently is actually probably what that's going to be. But that whole like biggest technical leap under the box, I don't think that's going to be till like 2028 or later, because the UDNA has to be out and cheap enough to make, for a console APU. The handheld, that's a different story. I wouldn't be surprised, because they're doing totally different things on their APUs, especially their laptop chips. I wouldn't be surprised to see that come out in like 2026 to 2027. And I think both, we've talked about this on the show before, like Microsoft has said a million times already. Phil Spencer, I think Satya Nadella said it once, like, we can't out console Sony and Nintendo. We've lost that war.
Mm-hmm.
It's too late at that point. They've got to pivot and try something different. So I think both the handheld and the box are going to be like, think the Steam Deck, but like Windows based. So it's the UI, the controller UI is going to be focused on Game Pass and Microsoft Store, but there's going to be a desktop mode, and you can run desktop apps in Steam, and if you want, if you're more of a power user. And I think that we're going to see, like, it's the Windows competitor to the Steam Deck in the handheld. And then the box, the TV box, is just going to be a amped up, more powerful version of that. But that's not coming until later. Like, they're definitely not launching them alongside each other. It wouldn't make sense to cannibalize the sales of both systems. And they want UDNA for the TV box. So handheld 26 to 27, yes, possibly. TV box 28 or later, I think.
It kind of makes sense there. I could see maybe the articles and these rumors getting it wrong that, it's not the console coming out. It's the handheld in 2026. That could very well be. So I'm on board with what you're saying there, and it makes total sense with the UDNA and everything as well. So that's why I had you on today, because I knew you would have something really smart to say and let us know. Colt Eastwood in the chat says UDNA is ready in 2026 and just after for consoles.
It's ready, kind of, but like they just released RDNA 4 just like this past week. It's really good. That could be a good console architecture if they were continuing the RDNA line. Like it would be a good one, but like the PC graphics isn't going to be for another 2 years from now at least. And they're not going to release I guess there's been precedent before, but I don't think that they're going to release a cutting edge, brand new like graphics architecture in a console before the PC stuff is like ready to release.
Right. It makes sense to me. Makes sense to me. Um, yeah. So Hargeet, anything else you want to add to this at all?
No, I mean, look, as far as the console, it could be either one. They don't necessarily have to follow that, but it does make it's what AMD is pivoting towards, right? They've decided they wanted to go down this path, right? So we were looking at the roadmap of RDNA 5, 6, 7, 8, right? And then they're like, well, we kind of want to combine these things. So, but they're continuing with that too. So we'll see what happens. But either way, it's viable either way. It just really comes down to what is better for both partners. And Microsoft is also pushing in one direction to say we want to do something disruptive, and maybe they say we don't care about your thing, AMD. We need to partner and do what we need to do. That's always a possibility. I agree with you though. Like UDNA makes more sense, right? You want to kind of solidify that long term because this is going to be an 8 to 10 year path. Once they do it, it's going to be there for a while. They're going to keep making that chip and supporting it, right? So you want to kind of get into the new thing. But business is business, right? And there's always time and money, and sometimes it's the time part that matters more. And so it could be that Xbox is like, nope, we got to beat them. We're gonna put it out now, and like this is our strategy. We got to go. So you never know, right? So either way, they will figure out something. It's gonna be an APU that's gonna be custom for a console anyway, right? The question is what kind of architecture underneath it. They'll figure it out. What I've been hearing is rumors were RDNA 5, Zen 6 is kind of the target. However, it's been a little delayed getting even 4 out, right? RDNA 4 is kind of coming out, so it's getting a little slower. I don't know if they're going to hit 5 if the dev kits are ready now. So it's probably going to be RDNA 4, and then Zen doesn't matter, whatever rev they can get, but. So we will see, right? If they wanted to wait for UD, yeah, it's going to take a while if you're going to wait for UDNA. So
PS6 is for sure going to be UDNA. We know that that is 100% going to be UDNA. PS6 is out of the question.
Yeah, because let's get into this right now. Let's talk about FSR. FSR has been demoed, showed to the world, and Jake, I wanted you to give us a little bit of insight in what you've come to understand about AMD's solution to, upscaling, and is it as good as DLSS now?
As good as the transformer model? No. Except for a couple of image quality aspects that generally no. That transformer model, it's hard to even, like, if you haven't seen it in person, just the massive giant difference that makes, it's hard to even describe. I think AMD could catch up to that, but right now FSR4 is not there. It does use a hybrid CNN and transformer model, which is part of the reason why it's only working on RDNA 4 right now, because it uses fairly complex algorithms. But yeah, but like it's kind of in terms of quality and stability, it's, if you take like overall wins and losses, it's kind of a half step between the old like DLSS3 CNN model and the transformer model. Like it can usually resolve more detail in motion, doesn't blur as much in motion, little less stability on contrast, but it doesn't fizzle as much. It anti-aliases like particles and confetti better, so like it's really good. It's a very, very good machine learning, considering that's their first attempt at a machine learning upscaler, which is not, this is going to offend some people, but it's not what we saw from PSSR. Now, what happened there was AMD, up until basically just a couple years ago, was adamant, like, we don't need machine learning to make a good upscaler. Sony obviously disagreed. We know Mark Cerny likes trying new things and somewhat being on the cutting edge for console stuff, and he probably disagreed with that, so they made their own machine learning acceleration hardware for or at least designed it for the PS5 Pro, and it was designed for that, and then that's what they had. And then after that development was already like at least part of the way or most of the way through, AMD pivoted. Suddenly they are making an ML upscaler, and they're all in on that. And then suddenly there's this Project Amethyst partnership between Sony and AMD for developing AI. So that's why we have PSSR, which has been like some wins, some good stuff from it, but not as good as it's not it's not a DLSS competitor. It's just not good enough for that. And then FSR4 comes out, and immediately, in every single conceivable way, it completely buries PSSR.
So what are you saying? Will we see the PSSR in the PS6?
I mean, it'll be supported on there for like backwards compatible PS5 Pro games, and I think it'll be there as an option for people that want to use it. But I personally think that PSSR, now that AMD has made that pivot and that Project Amethyst partnership is a thing, I think that PSSR is going to go the way that checkerboard rendering did. Remember, Sony made a checkerboard rendering upscaler for PS4 Pro. They made hardware acceleration for it. And then PS5 comes out and FSR2, which not a perfect upscaler, but as far as temporal upscalers go, it's really good. It's just not as good as the machine learning ones. That comes out, and Sony doesn't really see the need for checkerboarding anymore, and most of the game developers are just like using their own like temporal upscaler or FSR, and they're kind of ignoring checkerboarding. I think now that AMD's clearly just from the get-go here has already made a really great ML upscaler, and it's just going to get better. I think PS6 will definitely have hardware support for FSR4 or FSR5 or whatever built in.
That's what I'm thinking.
100%. And I think that they're just going to kind of pivot, and FSR4 and 5 is going to take over for PSSR. What you make a partnership like Amethyst because you want to spread the cost and resources out between the two companies, because AMD's got a lot of like manpower and talent for AI training, but not as much as Nvidia, not even remotely in the same universe. So they need to form partnerships like this in order to spread the cost out. Why would Sony continue to develop PSSR after PS5 Pro if AMD is just going to be doing the work for them and continuing to develop FSR 4 and 5? It just doesn't make any sense. I could see Sony helping make FSR 4 and 5 better with the stuff they've learned from PSSR. And it's not like PSSR's development would have been a waste of time and money, because if we don't see PS6 till 28, 29, that's 4 or 5 years of PSSR that they were able to use out of that development. So it's not a waste. But I think it's going to just kind of phase out, and we're gonna see a lot more FSR 4 and 5 next gen on all systems, not just Sony.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of Hargy. Have you seen the demos for FSR 4?
Have not had a chance, but I'm sure it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's really good, and in comparison to PSSR, it's like night and day. It's makes PSSR look like a joke.
I mean,
but I'm just, it's obvious that they're going to use FSR4 for sure for the PS6. This is what's going to be used in the next Xbox as well.
I think it'll probably be FSR 5 or 6 by then, and they'll have their own like ray reconstruction or other stuff like that.
Yeah, but honestly, it's a really good thing that they finally got FSR looking really good, because honestly, there's certain games that I've seen recently on the Series X that really do not benefit from FSR 3 at all. It just does not look good. It
and you know what's funny about
downright bad.
You know what's funny about that is that if you go and compare, like, not the games that brute force, like, FSR renders at 720p and upscales to 4K, not those ridiculous games, but just the ones that render like FSR balanced mode, like 1260p or whatever, or quality mode, which is 1440p to 4K. Those tend to look a lot better than the old like checkerboard rendering and TAAU, even when equalized for performance. So, like, as far as being a regular old normal temporal upscaler, especially 3.1 is probably about the best you're going to get. That and TSR, and also that thing that Guerrilla Games does on the Horizon ports on PS5 Pro. I don't know what they're doing there, or if that requires machine learning or not, but it's extremely good.
Yeah,
but that's about the best you can get. You have to use machine learning to go above that. Like FSR 3.1 is pretty much the limit of how good you're going to get that. It's better than the old ones, and it's oftentimes better than like native regular TAA, but it's just not as good as the ML stuff. And when you are spoiled with the ML stuff, it's hard to go back.
Ron G2665 in the chat, thank you for the $1.99. He says, will Xbox be better than DLSS?
I doubt anything will.
No.
I don't think the gap is going to be closed until I think it's going to be another 5 to 10 years, because Nvidia doesn't rest on their laurels when it comes to that stuff. They put so much money into that.
What
and
I
eventually
don't
there's
think
going to
will
be
happen.
There's
Yeah, go
going to be
ahead, sorry.
diminishing returns, for sure,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
eventually, like everyone's going to catch up, but it's going to be a long time.
Yeah, thank you for the $1.99. He also says the next Xbox generation. I mean, so,
Yeah,
go
look,
ahead,
I don't
Huggy.
think like they did before, Xbox is going to partner and not do their own thing. So like PSSR, they're not going to do something like that. So they waited for RDNA 2 and they worked with AMD to make that happen for the Xbox Series S and X, right? So
Yeah,
they don't want to take that on themselves. So this is why like almost all the time when new features come for FSR, they hit Xbox first. They did that on purpose because they wanted to make sure they're fully compatible with AMD stuff and not their own proprietary stuff, right? And that's PSSR is proprietary, and so I don't think Xbox is going to do that. I think they're going to partner again and say, AMD, you own this, we will help you, right? And whatever you need from us, we will make that work. But we're going to go with your standard, and that's what we're going to do. So I don't think they're going to write their own. I don't think that's going to happen. From my perspective, I don't think they're going to do that. And just like you were saying, like I think PS6 they're going to do the same thing. They're going to say, AMD, you take
yeah,
it, and we will partner with you. And
Again,
because it
Sony
just
will
it's too
help
much of a headache.
develop FSR 5 and 6.
Yeah,
Like that's the whole point of that MFS
exactly,
partnership. They're going to
exactly.
help with that, but that's
Yeah,
not going to be two separate projects. They're going to pool their
yeah,
resources for one project.
yeah.
exactly.
It was you, matter of fact, Jake, that let me in on this like a month ago. You were like, "Hey, have you tried the new DLSS 4?" He's all, "Here's how you do it," and he sent me a page on how to do it. So I tried it with Red Dead 2. And immediately I noticed a difference with DLSS 4. There was less shimmering in the background and the trees and the bushes and things like that. Like it DLSS 4 is so good. And as somebody Icy Rhythms in the chat said earlier, said it makes the performance mode look better than the DLSS 3 quality modes in some games, and he's not wrong.
So Forza Motorsport on PC, no matter what you throw at it, you could do DLAA, you could do native TAA, it would always ghost. There would always be like some shimmering in the distance, and your car would always leave a ghostly trail behind. Drop the DLSS4 transformer model in there and literally you can even set it to ultra performance and no ghosting, no aliasing, no nothing. It literally fixes it, and it's not even
Wow.
an official implementation.
Yeah, what they're doing there with NVIDIA and their AI solutions are something else. They're really spending a lot of money on that. Zocker87, by the way, good friend of mine, is always talking about how NVIDIA is pushing and pouring money into all that all the time. So, like,
Yeah,
that's why they're always on top. And yeah, for sure, there's going to be diminishing returns at a certain point, and you're going to have others catch up, but it's going to be a long time. I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. But yeah, I think that 2026 seems rather early for a next gen. So I'm going with what you guys think, where it could be the handheld. That's what I'm thinking in 2026. And then maybe at like late 2027, maybe, in 2020, early 28, I don't know, we might get the console, but I really think what people are referring to is probably that handheld. They just don't know it. I don't know. That's just my thought. Um, yeah. Other than that, I don't have anything else on my list here to go over. So if you guys want to talk about anything, Hargi, let me know if you want to talk about anything. We can do that. If not, we can wrap things up.
I mean, so like this is a small one was in the UK. It looks like PlayStation is going to be allowing you to rent a PlayStation.
What?
Um, you
Like
didn't hear about
like
that? Yeah.
Blockbuster
So
used to? I didn't hear about this.
yeah. They'll let you rent for a
Wow.
Oh
month.
yeah.
Like there's various prices depending on which model you want to rent. So you can rent it for a month. They already have it in Japan, and it's doing really well over there. And so they're bringing it to UK. Let's see if they bring it to other markets. So I don't know what you guys think about it, but I actually kind of like it in that if you're a primary on a Switch or on an Xbox or a PC, and let's say GTA comes out and you want to like, hey, I want to play GTA, you don't have to go pay the $500 or $700. You can just rent it for a month and just play the game, right? And once you're done, send it back and you're done, right? So you don't have to necessarily now the question is, do you buy the game? Do you get the model with the disk drive and then just return, buy it and trade it in, whatever it is, right? Like that, you have to kind of figure out on your own as far as the game itself. But it is an interesting option for those who might not be on a specific console, especially if you're a PC player and hey, you want to rent a PlayStation just to play GTA because it's going to be one of those that will only be on console. It's an option, and it's kind of an interesting option, right? I don't necessarily see it as a terrible thing that if you're hey, God of War 3 comes out,
as long as it's not Rent-A-Center
you know?
prices or something where you can be.
It's like
I'm gonna
$12.
say, like,
It's like $12 to get one for a month.
Yeah, because with those
$12,
Rent-A-Center,
it's
they
okay.
had like PCs,
That's not
and like
bad,
you
right?
can rent it for $15 a month, but guess what? You're going to be paying for 35 years. Like it was insane. Like people,
No, you can
Yeah.
do a 3-year lock-in, and that one was kind of ridiculous because once you do a 3-year lock-in, you're basically paying for the console. And I say, well, at that point, why don't you just pay for the console, right? But
Yeah.
but no, you could just rent it. It was like I think the lowest was $12, and then it goes up to like 15, and then if you want like the Pro, it was like 35, or like something like that in that range. So it was not bad. It was like it's not a bad deal. Just rent the console, play for a month, and send it back. So. Kind of an interesting thing that they threw out there.
Yeah, we'll see how that works. How it
12 to
works out for
15
them.
seems pretty low for renting gaming hardware.
Yeah,
We'll
it
see, like,
does.
if that ever comes to a market as big as the US, if they're able to pull that off, because I don't know.
God,
But
I could see
yeah,
a
I agree with
lot
that.
of
That's in
scammetry
pounds,
going on
right?
there.
So that's in pounds, right? It's not dollars. So that they're roughly, I think it's like time and a half, something like that, right? The pound is more valuable than the dollar.
Even with that,
So
like,
Yeah,
even if it was like
it's-
twice that still seems low.
then that's low for us. Like, yeah. Biff Rinaldi, thank you for being a member for 27 months. He says Tony Hawk Underground 1 and 2 and Need for Speed Underground 1 and 2 both need remakes. The soundtracks
I was just
alone
gonna say
are
Need for
burned
Speed
in my
Underground.
memory. Yeah.
I was just gonna say Need for Speed Underground is that, like, man, we used to play the crap out of that. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see that eventually, assuming it doesn't get ruined like everything else EA touches.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, that's it for the show today, guys. I appreciate everybody for coming out. I'm happy to have Hargeet back. Happy to have Jake here today to talk about the FSR stuff and everything and the next Xbox, whenever that will be. I want to thank you two, of course. Hargeet, I'll start with you. Let everybody know where they can find you, where they can find your book, where they can find your channel, all that stuff, because I'm sure you're just now getting back into the swing of things.
Yeah.
Is this your first podcast back?
No, I was on Booms, and then
Okay.
with C-Bunny and Doodle on Thursday, and
Okay. Well, welcome back, brother.
Yeah. So my channel, if you want to subscribe, Hargeet Chani 1 on YouTube. My book, if you want to pick it up, is a sci-fi novel. It's shop.chani.us. Check that out. And yeah, I'll be on with Web Dave tomorrow, 7 p.m. US Eastern on Web Dave's channel. Check that out, and I'll be back on with Boom on Wednesday at 7 p.m. US Eastern on Double Barrel Gaming. Check that out.
Nice. Nice. Thank you. Jake, let everybody know where they can find you.
Twitter/X FSAPO Jake JAKE. I'll leave a comment down below so you guys can find me. Or fsapo.com just links you right to my YouTube channel, which don't post too often, but that's something, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
Twitter's where the best place to find me, though. But like I always say, I'm not as nice on Twitter as I am on here.
Finding him there, warring with the console guys, and yeah, just kind of a dick. All right, that's what. No,
oh man, can you help it? There's literally a guy yesterday saying that the PS5 Pro is stronger than a 7900 XTX. How do you not make fun of someone for saying something that stupid?
I don't know why these guys say the things they do, but I have since stopped talking to these people. I honestly hardly ever post on Twitter anymore because it's just become such a cesspool of just toxicity and weirdness. I can't do it. Can't do it. Anyways, with that said, I want to thank everybody for listening live, everybody listening on demand. I appreciate all of you. And until next time, game on.